Welcome to Eagleby Wetlands, a peaceful little pocket of nature tucked away in Logan, Queensland. At first glance, it might look like just another stretch of bushland and water, but Eagleby Wetlands is actually a surprisingly important habitat for Australian wildlife. Located at 293 Logan Street in Eagleby and right beside the Albert River, the wetlands have been rehabilitated to protect the natural environment while giving the local community a place to walk, explore, and enjoy the outdoors. And for anyone interested in Australian wildlife, there's a pretty impressive reason to visit. More than 200 species of Australian native birds have been recorded here. Even more impressive, 19 of Australia's 24 species of raptors have been recorded in the area. So while you might come here simply for a quiet walk, it's worth keeping your eyes and ears open, because you never really know what you might discover. One of the things that makes Eagleby Wetlands interesting is the variety of different habitats found within the reserve. There are freshwater wetlands and lagoons, areas of restored forest, woodland with large old indigenous trees, open grassland and melaleuca swamp. There are also areas of brackish and tidal wetland, where the influence of the nearby Albert River creates conditions suitable for mangroves and other salt-tolerant vegetation. All of these different environments provide homes and feeding areas for different species of wildlife. And that's what makes wetlands so important. They aren't just pretty places to walk through. Wetlands provide habitat, breeding areas and food for an enormous variety of plants and animals, while also helping to support the health of surrounding waterways. Eagleby Wetlands is part of a much larger network of wetlands and waterways throughout Logan. The best way to explore the area is on foot. There is a network of walking tracks winding through the reserve, along with a boardwalk that takes you across part of the wetland. The boardwalk is one of the highlights of the area, giving you a different perspective of the wetlands and allowing you to get closer to the water and vegetation without having to walk directly through the habitat. There are also bird hides and interpretive signs around the area, which make it particularly appealing for birdwatchers and anyone interested in learning more about the environment. Depending on which section of the reserve you explore, you'll find yourself moving between open areas, shaded woodland, wetland vegetation, and the edges of the lagoons. It's the sort of place where slowing down really pays off. Rather than rushing from one end of the track to the other, stop occasionally, listen for bird calls and scan the trees and water. You may be surprised by how much wildlife is hiding in plain sight. With more than 200 native bird species recorded here, Eagleby Wetlands is one of those places where it's worth carrying a camera or binoculars. Around the waterways, you can look for ducks, waterbirds, herons, egrets, swamp hens and other species that rely on wetland habitat. In the trees and surrounding bushland, you may encounter smaller woodland birds, honeyeaters, wrens, kingfishers and other native species. And if you're lucky, you might even see one of the area's birds of prey. The fact that 19 of Australia's 24 raptor species have been recorded here is remarkable. Of course, that doesn't mean you'll see a raptor every time you visit. Wildlife is unpredictable, and that's part of the fun. Early mornings and late afternoons can be particularly rewarding, when many animals are more active, and the light is often much better for photography. Birds aren't the only wildlife you might encounter here. The wetlands also provide important habitat for reptiles and amphibians. Keep an eye around the edges of the water, through the grasses and in the warmer sheltered areas for lizards, turtles and other reptiles. And listen carefully around wet vegetation and ponds, particularly after rain. There are frogs living in wetland habitats throughout the area, and Logan City Council has even held frog spotting events at Eagleby Wetlands. You might also notice plenty of insects around the vegetation and water. While they may not be everyone's favorite wildlife, insects are an extremely important part of the wetland ecosystem and provide food for many of the birds, frogs, reptiles and other animals living here. So even when you can't see a large animal, There's usually plenty happening if you take the time to look.